We're live there. And soon we'll be live there. We got Peter, we got moderator. It's moderator, the moderator, and Peter, the moderator. I can't read that sign, it's too small. Good morning. It's still morning. Hope you are doing well. It's FriYAY. And we are doing an Ask a Traffic Cop that is like no other. It is a FriYAY. If you've never been here for a FriYAY, it's very much like a Thursday, except tomorrow is the weekend. So we celebrate not being at work. That's how it works. It's a new trend, and oddly enough, it's not because of the addition of the Star Wars cop in our office, but we do have the addition more often than not of Star Wars dad jokes. And I just, if it's coming from Akela Draconis, he brings the Star Wars jokes, and I'm kind of disappointed that the Star Wars cop isn't bringing the Star Wars jokes. Maybe you should be the one reading them. It's just. If you're watching, my name is Sean Shapiro. If you're watching, you're watching. I guess obviously if you're seeing this, you're watching. You could be hearing it on playback. But this is where you're probably watching from or listening on podcast. So we are on TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Kick, and X. And X is cool because it's the all-new and improved X. But it's cool because you can actually ask questions now. That's a few months in on that ability, because it was broken for years, but it works again. And if you want the greatest of great interfaces where you're guaranteed to be on screen and interacting with us, youtube.TrafficCop.com will actually bring you into the party in a different way, in a way that doesn't have hiccups and difficulties and issues with technology. TikTok works most of the time, but sometimes it has problems. And when it has problems, we can't hear you. It's working right now from what I can see, so that's a positive. Yes, 2 thumbs up. If you like listening and watching and being a part of the show, but don't always have the time to sit through the whole thing, we get you. They're all archived on YouTube. But you can also automatically synchronize with your device of choice, and you can download it to your phone and listen to it while you drive without breaking the law. It's a pretty awesome feature. That's because it synchronizes to all the podcasting apps, probably even your favorite podcasting app, which makes me happy. If you missed yesterday's show, we were on with Jerry Yeager on News Talk 1010, and that is always fun. We had some technical difficulties with them, too, and I think it was on their end with cell phone people. What is going on there? Stuff popping up on the screen and going away from the screen? It's all sorts of stuff. Many helpers pinning questions to the to the background, so I can find them most easily. If you want to ensure that your questions are seen, so we can engage, which is really a Star Trek kind of thing, engage. You can go ahead and ask your questions, but put a Q in front of them so we know it's a question for us rather than comments and dialogue amongst yourselves. Now, I want to see if this post went. Posty, did it work? It did. Couple of things. We've been seeing a lot of action at the X. Has it happened yet? Is the X open? Is that starting this weekend? Is it already open? I have the nods from moderator Peter the moderator. He says it's open. So that's why the Vision Zero enforcement team graphic is, in fact, the Prince's Gates. I thought it was appropriate to use that graphic today. So it's 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock. Right now, the X is open officially. We should walk over there and say hello to everybody. It's very close by to where we are at Traffic Services. But the Prince's Gates, people call it the Princess Gates. It's not the Princess Gates. It's the Prince's Gates. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, let me put it on screen. Just for those who may not be from here. Ba-doo. Here we go. Share. So many clicks to share. Here we go. That's the Prince's Gates. Just slowly, the princes, yeah, it's his gates. But they did a lot of repair of that. They really did a whole lot of work. And since I have that up, Vision Zero enforcement team is what we're talking about. They are the magical group of officers who go out there trying to change driver behavior one ticket at a time. No hugs from these officers. No, they are trying to make a change. And what are they trying to change? Well, the dangerous driving behavior that leads to serious injury and death. They focus on the big four. They are looking for folks who decide to drive over the speed limit. I know it happens, but it's not legal, and it doesn't happen. It cannot be accepted when it's well above the speed limit. A couple of kilometers here and there, no one is breaking a sweat. But when you're doing significant amounts of kilometers of speed over the limit, well, you're putting lives at risk. In fact, for every 5 kilometers over the limit, you're quadrupling your chances of becoming involved in a motor vehicle collision. And last year, we had, I believe, 45 deaths on our road, 45 or 49. I keep mixing up the two. Way too many. 1 is unacceptable. 45 is ridiculous. And a group that was really overrepresented in that number were pedestrians, vulnerable road users who lost their lives on Toronto streets. So not okay. Today, the Vision Enforcement team is focused on changing behavior in 52 Division and 33 Division. Those are neighborhoods like Kensington, why did I say Kingston? Kensington, Chinatown, Bay Street Corridor, Parkwoods, Donalda, Bayview Village, York Mills, neighborhoods where real people live, work, and play and deserve to be safe. It's a thing. It is a thing. I see that our magical moderators are putting up all the greetings and salutations so we can skip right into the good stuff, which is questions. Questions from you so we can help you out and answer those things. That's what we're here for, after all. Okay. We'll start off with this magical one. What's the law on underglow for your car? We've never heard this question before. Okay, maybe we've heard it once or twice. It is, in fact, one of the most commonly asked questions. Tint and underglow, the two most popular questions over the last 3 years. And the answer is that there's no specific law on underglow. There are laws, however, dealing with the color of light and the direction of light that color can be projected. So you can't have anything other than white or yellow to the front of your vehicle. So if your underglow is projecting forward because the bulbs are visible, well, you expect a ticket. If you're projecting light backwards, well, anything other than red or amber becomes chargeable. To the sides, it's questionable as to what color you can project there, but it really means that amber is the only safe color, and people who have red, blue, green, and flashing, all sorts of potential issues. If you are going to install it, I suggest using it on private property only, not when you're driving around. And if you are going to insist on driving around, I would suggest putting the bulbs as high up into the undercarriage of your vehicle so that only a faint glow, which is what it's for, is cast onto the road and that you're not projecting light outwards. And your mileage may vary. You may find that some areas enforce that heavily and others don't. Okay, a question from Evandro, our Brazilian fan who happens to be an auxiliary police constable in Peel and is devoted, has made a plan to become a police officer. So he asks, if driver number 1 tailgate driver number 2 and driver number 2 press the brakes to avoid that situation, have a penalty for driver number 2. Driver number 1 tailgates driver number 2. So you have a situation where you're being followed too closely and you press the brakes to avoid the situation. I need to clarify. Are you saying that we are braking to avoid a situation ahead and the vehicle behind hits you because they're following too close? If you're braking for real situations because you're driving safely and you don't want to hit the person in front of you and that causes the person who is following you too closely to hit you, that's the person who hits you's fault. If, however, you're talking about someone trying to avoid the person from tailgating and they're hitting the brakes specifically to cause a collision or scare the person behind them, that's a different story. Now, the person may still be charged with following too close because that's not okay, but doing a brake check, hitting the brakes to get a response from the person behind is actually stunt driving. And depending on the situation and what we can prove in court or what we can prove to the officer investigating through cameras and, hopefully we have dash cameras or witness testimony, a third-party non-involved witness testimony, because people in the cars are going to tell you 2 stories that are probably going to benefit them. So those 2 generally don't make good witnesses because they're biased. But anyway, that's a different story. So situation depends. That's the answer of the day. It depends on what the info is. We try and create a holistic image of what happened. We need that information to go and make good decisions. Okay. We got, I'm going to pick up a car. Can I use my old plates to pick it up? So the answer to your question is depends. If you don't have any vehicle attached to those plates. So I'll give you a scenario. I have a car. Yeah, I've taken insurance off of it, but the registration is still on that car. I cannot take those plates and put them on a new car. If, however, I've taken the plates and I've removed them, I've sold the car, I don't own a car, but I have the plates that were on my old car. I have the plates. They're unattached, according to the ministry. Those unattached plates, once I put insurance on the new car, insurance policy has to be active on the new car, can then be used. So the new plates the old plates can be used on the new car for up to 6 days if it's unattached status and the vehicle is safe for the road. So that's the conditions. But the insurance is the big one. You must have an insurance policy on the new car. You cannot use insurance policy bound over from anywhere else. You can't just say, I have insurance, we're going to drive the new car, because you're not insured. And then bad things happen, my friend. That's $5,000 to $25,000 fine for driving without no insurance. Without insurance, yes. Here's an interesting question. What is considered criminal speeding? A very, very good question. It depends. It's a lot of depends today. Once I start saying depends, I can't stop. The deal is that speeding, at least dangerous driving, which is a criminal offense, it has to be a speed that the officer determines there's no specific speed at which point it becomes criminal. So 50 kilometers an hour could be stunt on the highway, but 50 kilometers over on a surface road in a populated area could very easily be articulated to be criminal dangerous driving, at which point you'd be arrested as opposed to simply given a ticket. So it depends, and it's up to the officer. Like you can establish criminal dangerous driving simply through speed, and we've seen drivers doing 150 on the highway charged with dangerous because they happen to be weaving through traffic, whereas at an empty road in the middle of the night, 150 may not constitute dangerous. Again, it's all up to the officer investigating in their perspective and how they articulate that. Let's see here. Can you do a safe U-turn at every intersection unless posted otherwise? On a green light where you are safely able to do it, unless it's prohibited, unless that is in front of a bridge, viaduct, tunnel, railway crossing, like within proximity of those things, you can't. But generally speaking, it's otherwise considered safe, unless, of course, you end up in a collision, because guess what? It wasn't safe if you got into a collision. You're taking anyone turning, whether it be all the way around or just halfway and continuing about their business, they are taking on that responsibility when they conduct a U-turn. And I'm not a big fan of U-turns. I don't advocate for them. I don't think it's a good idea in most cases. Sometimes it's what you got to do, but I would always take a private property, U-turn on a driveway, 3-point turn, go around the block, like some other alternative, because U-turns have been linked to so many fatal collisions. It's because the person's not paying attention. And just because you're doing your best doesn't make it safe. Is photo of an ownership acceptable when you are pulled over? No, it's not. That does not meet the legal requirements. You are required to provide the original or a real copy, a true copy, which is a photocopy of both sides, not just one side, but the front and back of the document. It was more of an issue for front and back when the stickers were being put on the back, the validation stickers, but it's still written that way in law, so you still need to have both sides represented in your photocopy. And I think photocopies are great. I think your original should stay at home in a fireproof safe, and your copies can be, I don't suggest leaving them in your vehicle because I don't like personal information being available for thieves who would be, searching for stuff like to find out where you live. That's bad. But I put it in my wallet. My photocopy is in my wallet at all times with my insurance documents and my driver's license, which is all required when you're pulled over. All right. What about what you do about mini bikes on the road? Mini bikes don't get mini fines. They're not legal on the road, so they get the same fine as a full-size motorcycle on the road without license and insurance, because they're not licensed and They're not licensed and insured for the road. So if you happen to use them on the road, expect to be charged for no license plate, for no insurance, for no proper registration of a road vehicle, I'm guessing. What else? Off-road vehicle being used on the road. There's a ton of stuff. But the big one is the no insurance, because that's the $5,000 to $25,000, up to 6 months in jail on conviction. Now, people are not generally going to jail on this. It does happen, but it's rare. What is happening is, on average, $5,000 for a first offense, and it goes up. Even though if there were, factors that made it more serious, you could find yourself seeing more than 5,000. I just heard about someone, was it a stunt driving charge? Someone did 3 months in jail for, it was either stunt or insurance, and I can't remember which, probably stunt. Either way, the courts are fed up with drivers who are choosing to do stupid things on the road, and they're starting to use the jail option more. I think that's pretty cool. If you don't want to go to jail, if you don't want to pay fines, if you don't want to have problems, my suggestion would be don't break laws. Is lane splitting illegal in Ontario, sir? Lane splitting is illegal across Canada and most of the United States. Places like California allow it, and they do warn that it's dangerous, and you should do it only at low speed and carefully. But have you seen how bad the average driver is in Ontario and on the rest of the planet? Like, people are so focused on their cell phones that they are not at all worried about safety, and they are parking by feel or driving by feel. Like when they smack into the person next to them, they, whoops, yeah, we should be paying attention. They wait for honking horns to remind them that they're in command of a large vehicle. And the rider, whether you think it's safe or not, is at risk and puts others at risk too. Pedestrians are running between cars crossing streets. We had a pedestrian killed by a motorcycle going through lane splitting last year, I believe. It's just a bad idea, and it's not supported in law as legal. So what is it? It's either careless driving, stunt driving, or criminal dangerous driving, because you ought to know that you're putting lives at risk. Now, what you get charged with is all based on what the officer articulates in their evidence and chooses to lay. But it could be any one of those. I was going to tell you about since I started talking about cars that were paying attention or not paying attention while driving, I got to share a story. I was in traffic on the way home last week, and there was a woman who was on their phone. Now, this woman happened to have her phone in her left hand at the steering wheel in a fold wallet. I know this because I watched her for a great deal of time in traffic. And what would happen is all the traffic in front of her would roll away, and she would wait until someone honked the horn before she looked up to go forward. This is called, I guess, group or community driving, because everybody else is helping you do it, because she certainly wasn't paying attention. Then when she got to the next point, she'd look down at her phone again and get engrossed in what was going on. I don't know if she was watching TV or what, because I couldn't see the screen. But I started having some fun with her because I wasn't in a position to pull her over in my personal vehicle with my children in the car. So I would honk the horn every time she looked down, and she'd keep looking up. And I disrupted her phone situation, but boy, she was paying attention. I actually did have a conversation with her at the next lights when I opened the window and suggested that it was illegal to use the phone, which she then ignored me and continued to use her phone again. I honked again, and I reinforced my messaging with the presentation of my badge and suggested that it was a $615 fine. You shouldn't be doing it. She did put her phone away after that. I would have preferred to pull her over, but it wasn't appropriate at the time. Okay. Is there a way to have, let's see here, is there a way to have a vehicle on a small road without a registration needed? If that small road was a private road on your private property, then yes, because private property doesn't require you to have license ownership and insurance. Now, you need to own the vehicle, but you don't need to have it registered. It could be, I guess people call it farm cars or farm trucks. You should own it. You have a 6-day requirement to change the ownership, but you say registration, like on your person, like not have to physically fork it over. I guess that's what we're going for. In any case, no license would be required, no insurance would be required, but it's just a bad idea, even though you could get away with it. Now, stunt driving in that vehicle on your private property is still illegal. So if you were using that to do donuts, you could find yourself still having a suspension registered. Even if you don't have a license, you can get that suspension. It's weird how that works. Oh. Question is, picking up liquor in a smart car. In a smart car? Where can I put it? It's always accessible to the driver. I understand what you mean. Yeah, it's a small vehicle. So there's a couple of things. If it's sealed from the manufacturer, you buy it from the liquor store, it's sealed, anywhere in the vehicle is legal. Same thing if you're buying marijuana from a legal shop. It's sealed from the manufacturer. It is absolutely, could be placed anywhere. As soon as that seal is broken, however, it must be in luggage, and away from the driver. So if you put that in a bag and you put that underneath clothing, and it becomes that you've made efforts to make it inaccessible, even if that is somewhat accessible in a smart car. I get what you mean, though. There is a small compartment behind the last row of seats. There's only one row of seats. So in the trunk, I thought there was a ledge that you could be under it. Would be a good place. Either way, I hear you. I understand the predicament. I almost bought a smart car. For those who don't know, I'm 6'5", and a generally big person. And I thought about buying a smart car because I didn't want to waste money on gas. And there was a deal on one. So I took it for a test drive. And I kept pushing the vehicle into neutral because if you know how the gearbox works in that vehicle, it's I think it was a manual pause, like push forward for up and down the gearbox and to the side for neutral. And that's it. It's a weird vehicle that way. So I didn't buy it, but it was so much fun to drive. You'd think it would be, tiny and weird, but it was like a go-kart. Let's see here. Keegan has a question. Does the law and insurance regulations differ? It was my understanding you have up to 7 days of obtaining new vehicle to notify insurance company as your new vehicle default covered 4 to 7 days. No, you must have insurance on a vehicle prior to driving it on the road. It's not a matter of notifying the insurance company. It's about having a valid insurance policy on that vehicle before it ever hits the road. So unless you're in a different province and they have different rules there, no, you must change the ownership with the ministry within 6 days. You must have insurance on that vehicle before you put it on the road, period. It cannot be on the road in any way, shape, or form. I charged a gentleman who had storage insurance, like personal fire and theft insurance on his vehicle for the winter because it was a summer sports car. And he had his other vehicle insured all year round, but he decided he just wanted to take it out a few days early. And he was charged and convicted for driving without insurance on the road because he didn't have actual liability coverage for driving. Very different situation. Hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, well, then ask me it in a different way. I am happy to readdress it in the hopes to clarify things. If you're watching, and I see there are people who are on Instagram, know that Instagram kind of stinks and it doesn't link with us. It's a great platform. If you like it, it's a great platform. I don't want to upset the Instagram people, but we don't always see you because you're on a little island off to yourselves, and I don't see it in the big whole bucket of questions on the other side. So youtube.trafficcop.ca to get to our YouTube page and join in the fun. Let's see here. We got lots going on. Everything seems to still be linked up. TikTok is still doing its thing. Good. I can unflag this and come here. Does the straight or left sign prohibit a U-turn? If it's telling you what direction to go, it's an interesting question. What do you think, Peter? If it has a sign that says straight through or left, can you make a U-turn? He says no. I think that's a very interesting question. It's not a prohibited turn because it's not listed. And I would say that's for the intersection direction as opposed to, before the intersection. So if you were before or after the intersection, that might work. This is where a Sergeant Campbell would be a great person to bounce this question off of. But is that a Sergeant Campbell waving? Wait, since he's there, what does he say? I can't hear him. They're talking amongst themselves. But yeah, straight or left sign. He's coming. Oh, he's coming in. Backup is on its way.
I just happened to be walking by somebody's office and I heard your voice.
That's too funny. So the question on the docket is, does a straight or left sign prohibit a U-turn? Because it says here you can go straight or left. And I don't think it prohibits a U-turn, but I definitely suggest what you can do at the intersection or what the lane markings are. But I don't know. I've never been asked this question.
So a straight or left sign, giving direction of what lane to use to do what maneuver in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does it prohibit? Are you going left? Are you going straight?
Well,
if it says straight only.
But is that that's for the intersection, right? So if you're doing it before the intersection, and if it says left and you continue left and then go all the way around into a U-turn, is that a prohibited turn? Because it's an interesting question.
It is actually, yeah.
I like it.
I don't even know how to answer that.
Well, that's why we're doing this.
So a left turn only would be a lane, and it's an offense if you don't obey the lane sign or the lane light.
Mm-hmm.
But does it prohibit you from doing a U-turn?
Because that is a left turn that doesn't stop.
That's technically yes.
I don't think it would. I don't. Without getting legal involved, I don't think that would be an appropriate charge to do a prohibited U-turn because it's not prohibited there.
Exactly.
It could be disobeying another sign charge, possibly, maybe.
Depending on the scenario, depending on where it is and how it's signed and where you're actually completing your maneuver.
Yeah. I think this will take further discussion off camera and possibly even calling for a meeting of the minds to
Yep.
discuss further. But
You know
I
what?
think it's awesome.
If you have a photo of the intersection or any information on the intersection, we can use, the technology as in Google and maybe have a look at it and see what you're talking about. So,
Yes, examples are always good. And I saw a Hi Sarge message pop up, and I accidentally buttoned over it.
but if you have it, send it to Sean. Send it.
Yeah, send us an email. Is windshield tint okay?
Do we even have to answer that?
I got to go back to this one because the answer is no. It's
Absolutely not.
There is a for vehicles prior to 2017, so 2016 and older, they're allowed to have the 3 inches of tint strip from the top of the windshield to the AS1 line, or 3 inches, whichever happens first. That's legal for 2016 and older vehicles. I'm seeing it on new vehicles all over the place.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not legal and it's unsafe, so you could actually lose your plates for it.
Now, I can say that certain vehicle manufacturers have original equipment windshields that do have what looks like a coating over it to protect it from UV rays, but it doesn't tint the windshield in any way.
And then
you may look at them and go, well, if it's legal for them, maybe it's legal if I do it.
Yeah,
but it's not.
It depends if it's baked into the glass versus actually applied afterwards. And there's also the stuff that looks like tint, but it's actually stippling or material that works with their sensors, antennas. Some vehicles have built-in antennas in the windshield. That's all part of the windshield. It's not a coating applied afterwards.
And I got to say, anything that limits your ability to see out of the car, see danger, see what's happening around you, is just not good sense.
It's not smart.
It really isn't.
And it's not just about being able to see out. It's also for others to see in, make that nonverbal communication, be able to see what you're doing. And if you can make that eye contact, you know when people can see you.
Absolutely.
And there's a connection. It's electric. And it allows you to know that you're being seen. If you're just walking blindly in front of a car where you can't see the driver, and we're talking about full windshield tint in this situation, it's unnerving. It's not safe.
Yep. There's an awful lot of times I won't even step off the curb unless somebody sees me.
Yes. And it's not enough to assume that they see you. People get hit by cars when they assume things.
Yep.
You have to make sure that the vehicle actually stops. And for having been someone who's directed traffic, I can tell you that people don't even see you when you're waving your arms in a big gold uniform with yellow fluorescent stripes and the words police across your chest.
No, they don't.
You're invisible. Okay, we talked about the mini bike on residential roads. What's
that
this
would be
one?
a no.
A hard no. Can more than one person enter the intersection on a left turn? So this is charging the intersection to prepare for the left turn. And I think that really depends on the size of the intersection.
Yeah.
If you can safely make your way into there to wait to make the left turn, I don't see a reason you couldn't. But if it was a tiny intersection, that could block other traffic from moving. And if there's nowhere for you to go, you could still be blocking the box.
Right. You could be blocking the box. But if you enter the intersection when it's lawful to do so and you wait your turn, even if that turn means that the light is starting to cycle and you're clearing the intersection, as long as you've entered it lawfully.
On a green, not a yellow, a green.
Right. Then you can clear it lawfully as well.
And I should...
So yes, in most cases, I would say yes.
I agree. And to specify, the yellow, when I say that you can't enter on a yellow, it's because yellow means stop. And if you're in bumper to bumper or slow moving traffic and it turns yellow, that isn't an opportunity to squeeze in. It's a wait to your turn because the instructions of a yellow is stop unless unsafe to do so. So you would have had to have been moving at a reasonable speed.
And I believe the fine's $150 for that one and several points. So it is quite a significant one.
Does stunt driving apply to private tracks? What's the exemption? We said private tracks and tracks. So the HDA now includes, and I think it's as of September 12th, 2021, that this came into play. But effectively, private property was now under the HDA for stunt driving charges, which include things like burnouts and speed and all sorts of other stuff. But tracks, race tracks, are exempted. So are go-kart tracks and permitted events. To make your track an approved track, what do you have to do? I assume you need proper insurance and protocols must be followed, but I don't know.
But it would have to be recognized as a race event type track. And we have temporary ones like the Toronto Indy, where it's exempt. but it's a closed course. It's on public and private property, but even in your own property, even in a
Farmer's field.
a beach, a parking lot.
Above and below ground.
Exactly. They're not allowed, and they do qualify as stunt driving. It's because of the actions of some ignorant people that
you said it so much nicer than I would have said it.
Yeah, but the government had to change this because of the actions of people. The takeover events, the dangerous driving that happens, the collisions that occur, the people that get hurt or killed because of it. That's the reason the government changed it. Every rule that's out there, every law that's out there is created because somebody did something and the government said, that was not a good idea. Maybe we'll make a rule about it.
Yes, especially if it costs them money. But back to how do you know or what the exemption is? If you got a permit from the government to build on your property, if you want to put a shed, if you want to do anything, any extension on your home, anything you're doing on your property requires a building permit. Yep. If you got a permit to build that track, I'm going to assume that that's an authorized track.
It would be recognized and authorized.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if you didn't, then I'm going to assume it's not authorized. I think that's the easy way to go.
There are some racing bodies that are actually mentioned in the Act.
Indy and NASCAR and things like that.
Yeah, we're actually given the exemption across the board.
Yeah, it makes life a lot easier that way. How to move away or stop someone from falling too close. I think following too close. It's scary and potential to crash. So my thing is I gradually decelerate. I let my foot off the gas ever so slightly and start slowing down if someone is riding my bumper too close.
Until they get fed up with it and go around you?
Because I'm not going to be bullied on the road. I'm not going to become aggressive, but I'm going to, if I'm not in the right lane, if I'm not moved over to the right, I'm going to move out of the way. Yep. That's one. But then if they follow me or I'm already in the right lane, I'm going to gradually get off the gas and slow down, and then they'll get the hint.
I saw something on social media quite recently, and it says if there is one person tailgating you, that's that person's problem. And just let them go because they're driving really badly. If many people are stacked up behind you tailgating you, it might be a you problem. You may be driving too slow given the road conditions and the normal flow of traffic. In a case like that, and you're not able to drive faster, pull over.
If your vehicle is disabled, if you're doing 60 in a 100 zone, that might be an issue. If you're driving 100 in a 100 zone, stay to the right, let them pass you. I'm not going to suggest you go faster than the limit. That's not legal. And but certainly be in the appropriate lane.
There's nothing wrong with pulling over and letting people pass you.
Sure. And, but the concept of driving too slowly because your vehicle is broken, that's a vehicle getting towed situation. You shouldn't be on the road if your vehicle is incapable of maintaining the appropriate speed. That's a different situation. Here's a question. Earlier, I talked about seeing a woman on the ride home. I had my kids in the car, and this person was texting and driving, but so much so that they would come to a stop, and all the vehicle traffic would move away, and they'd be on the phone until someone honked at them. So then I had a discussion with that person, and I didn't pull them over because I had my kids in the car. But they said, so cops in their private vehicle, perhaps off-duty, can't pull anyone over? That's not true. They can. We are police officers 24/7. We can, because we have the authority to, but it doesn't always make sense to do that safely.
That's true. Depending on the scenario, depending on the circumstances, it's sometimes easier just to call a friend and have somebody who's working come, be a great witness and give evidence. On the other hand, I have done it once before where I had a discussion with somebody and they weren't getting it. So I told them they were getting a ticket, and I actually served them a ticket the days afterwards.
Well, there was a gentleman who received a ticket after an interaction with a police officer on the highway. It was an off-duty RCMP or OPP officer, and it made all sorts of news because the officer said, I'm going to be serving you, and they did. And the person didn't believe he was, should be getting a ticket. But it was quite an interesting thing.
What to do?
But absolutely, police officers are police officers 24/7. If a police officer identifies himself with their badge and warrant card, they're telling you exactly who they are, and they have the authority.
Yeah. We work in the city of Toronto right now, and we're getting paid to police the city of Toronto while we're on duty. But that doesn't stop us from being police officers anywhere 24/7, 365 days a year in the province of Ontario. A police officer is a police officer is a police officer and has the authority to act if need to. It's up to us to decide
what's safe and appropriate.
Level,
yeah. And very often being the best witness and calling for an emergency, calling 911. But I've come up on so many vehicles where impaired drivers were asleep at the wheel. And it became a babysitting thing. Not saying, hey, I'm a police officer at that point. I'm waiting because I'm not trying to escalate things so I end up in a big punch-up. It's waiting until the cavalry arrives and then being a great witness.
But should you have to take action
Then you do.
and use force, you can if need be.
We talked about this already. 2 drivers entering the intersection on a left turn. Yes, if it's safe to do so, then it can be done. If you're entering when it's legal. What is this? How to right turn with bike lanes. Oh, this is a great question. Can I enter a bike lane if no bike is there, car from behind in bike?
It's so confusing.
And every intersection is randomly designed to confuse you.
Yeah.
It depends on the construction of the intersection. If there's hash marks there, if there's a green marking on the road, that is an indication that cars and bikes may occupy the same space. So in that situation, you're expected, and we want you to pinch the curb so that you enter the bike lane and allow bicycles to know that you're there and they can pass you on the left, which is the safest way to go. Many bike advocates will say that that's not safe. You're making me go into the flow of traffic and you're putting me at risk. Putting you at risk is changing lanes in front of you and cutting you off when cyclists tend to go faster than the flow of traffic, and especially in slow speed city traffic. And then we have situations like, and I don't know the details of this, but I saw a horrifying clip where a truck made a turn and actually made contact with a cyclist. Well, that cyclist was going quite quickly. That I could see, but I don't know if the truck signaled. I don't know anything else about it.
Right.
But that scenario would have been avoided had that truck in a green marked road space tucked in and occupied that space. The cyclist, there's no obligation to let cyclists go faster. You have to slow down and make good moves too. So they could have slowed down, waited for an opportunity, and then gone around. It would have been much safer.
But there are situations where you cannot do that, or not allowed to do that.
Cycle tracks, which are separated roads. There is none of that hash mark or green space notifying you that both cars and bikes can occupy the same space. Those are ones where you need to be making a safe move, and it's very confusing for drivers because you can't always see a cyclist coming.
Especially if they're moving very, very quickly.
Sure, you're trying to approximate speed. When you're looking at a vehicle, it grows. But you're looking at a dot in the distance to a very slim person as they get closer. It's hard to judge speed. That's not an excuse for doing something dangerous. It's just the reality of it. But that's also, there's a responsibility for cyclists to judge what's happening up front. If you see a vehicle waiting to turn, just pushing on through is a good way to get hurt.
Right. You may be in the right, but you're putting yourself at risk as well.
My mother used to say you could be right and dead.
Yep, you certainly can. You know what? It's a combined responsibility to be on these roads, and we have to take consideration for both sides of the coin, both sides of the vehicle, both sides of the pedestrian, both sides of everything that's happening out there.
And it's
Work together.
It's important from both sides, and both sides have legitimate concerns and risks, and it's a complex problem. We have roads that are complex. Never mind putting people on them. It's just, and everyone is special, and everyone's in a rush, and everyone wants attention and protection, and we all have to work together. So it's a shared responsibility, traffic safety, which really upsets some people when I say it like that, because they say, how come a driver of a car doesn't have more responsibility than
any other road user? Well, because we're all road users.
Yeah. So whether you walk, ride, or drive, you got to have you have to be in the game.
Yep. Let's
see here. What did they say here? That was, and I'm more special. There's a lot of entitlement. This is from a comment from Peter. So when you put the complaint in, you could mention him. This is very much a me situation. Everyone sees it from their perspective, but doesn't often see it from the other, and it's hard to.
Yep.
Okay, back on track. Evandro says, my future sergeant, I'm going to work with I'm going to work on traffic with you, I promise. So we have Evandro who's actually in process.
Excellent.
And good luck.
Yeah.
And absolutely,
we're looking forward to it.
We would love to have more traffic-minded people. Not every police officer is ready to be a traffic officer.
Ready or sees the benefits for it.
Yes.
You know what? More people are hurt and injured and killed in traffic collisions than there are in violent crimes. And policing is a whole big gamut of things that you have to do. Traffic enforcement, traffic investigations is only one portion of it. And I've done a whole bunch of stuff in my career, but I like doing this.
It's our
thing. I really
do.
do.
It's our thing. And that's not to say other types of policing aren't important. They are. It's just that we write off, or many people don't or discount the value of traffic officers because they don't see what's real. Like we see people, and it was 45 or 49 deaths last year, and at least half of them were pedestrians, if not more than half. And those are people who are just trying to get to where they were going. They weren't doing anything criminal. They weren't drinking, driving. They were just normal people.
Yep.
And they're not here now because someone made a decision to drive unsafely. Whereas, somebody possibly involved with gun crime, although they could be victims, may also be involved in a lifestyle that put them in a situation where people with guns were. It's not to suggest that they deserved it. Nobody deserves to have their life taken. But it's interesting that people who would have never been involved with policing or risk of that nature are put at risk. It's inherently dangerous to drive. It's inherently dangerous to walk around, apparently. Okay. Hey, question, can a G1 driver listen to music or does the radio have to be off? Whatever your parents said to you. No, there's no regulation saying that you have to have the radio turned off.
But what is the whole purpose of having a G1 license?
It is to learn. Yeah.
It's an educational process where you have an accompanying driver that's able there to communicate with you and give you pointers and make sure you're doing it safely. If you're rocking out to Taylor Swift.
Does that rock?
Are you really paying attention? Are you really communicating?
What genre is she? Wasn't she country at one point? I don't listen to Taylor Swift. I'm not a Swiftie. I'm sorry. I'm seeing nods from Peter. Maybe he is a Swiftie. You got 2 thumbs up. So here's the thing. Listening to music is a distraction. So there are jurisdictions that say you cannot use a phone even in speaker mode if you're a learner. And I think that's great advice because you should be focused on listening to the good advice of the supervising driver and paying attention to what's happening. Do you remember Homer Simpson? Well, in one episode, Danny DeVito plays his long-lost brother who owns a car or runs a car manufacturing facility, and he says, "Okay, Homer, you're the working guy. Tell me what you need. We're going to make you a car just for you. We're going to make a whole. We're going to do exactly what the Homer car." And he builds a car that basically has a separate space segregated from his children who annoy him. And, of course, it was a ridiculous vehicle. But in principle, it was actually very smart because if your kids are screaming and having fun and distracting you, it's not safe, and it gives you a headache. But, we talk about distractions, and it's not just using your phone actively. It's listening to anything other than being focused on the job. I like it.
I was kind of just imagining that car and going, that could be pretty good.
It was really gross.
Yeah.
I'll pull it up on screen.
Are you squirreling?
Of course I'm squirreling. Homer Simpson car. Why can't I type it? Simpson car. Here it is. Putting it on screen. I'm not going to try and get a better image of it. This is just my screen share. So this is the make it big. Here we go. He debuted his bubble for the adults and his bubble for the back. I mean, it was a horrible, ugly design, but
I love it.
You'd be less distracted.
I like it.
You want one? We could arrange that. Let's see here. What would the charge be for going straight from a right turn only lane?
Disobey sign, unsafe maneuver.
Could be anything.
Disobey lane lights. Careless?
Is it disobey lane markings?
No,
I haven't laid
lane light. There's a lane light charge.
But if there's
so
no
if you
light,
have an advanced right turn lane and you go through on it,
that would be applicable.
Yep.
But I thought there was something specifically for lane markings.
If it's signed.
If there's a sign, obviously, then it's disobey sign, which has three demerit points or 2. Points are interesting. 2 points.
2 points.
Let's see here. Great program. What's the law about vehicles' tires are wider than the vehicle's body? So I was recently talking to Cam Woolley, and I asked him about buying a Hummer H1 because I really want one, and they're old enough now that I might actually be able to buy a used one.
Well, why are you asking him?
Because he had a whole bunch of them.
Oh,
he used to own a movie car business, and he had lots and lots of cars.
I actually knew that, but I just wanted you to say that so that everybody else knew that.
It makes sense. It is a cool thing. And Cam Woolley, if you don't know who he is, he was a sergeant with the OBP who then left to become a CP24 correspondent and then retired after 13 years of doing that. So he's had every car under the sun. He's a car guy. And, we talked about it. And aside from the fact that he said, don't buy one. The long and the short of it was, don't buy a Hummer. we were talking about, keeping them and maintaining. I started looking at all the pictures, and all of these have giant tires, and they're all covered by the body, and they all have mud flaps, which makes them legal.
Yes.
If you have tires that protrude and it's not covered by a portion of the body, a fender or fender flare, and it's not covered by mud flap, that is not lawful.
Absolutely, and ticketable as well, and maybe not safe. If any part of the body wheel sticks out past the body, where's the protection for pedestrians making right turns and all? Now, that being said, there are vehicles that were manufactured that didn't have coverings over the tires.
Older cars.
If your vehicle was manufactured like that, in that manner, it's still okay to drive on the road.
Because it's grandfathered by the laws of the time.
Right. But if you're modifying a vehicle and putting wider tires on, wider tires are great when you're off-roading. It adds a little more stability. If they stick out farther, you have a better stance until you try and go through the trees with them, and then they get ripped off.
I saw a fantastic video. I hope I can find it again. It was an Instagram video, and it was a car that went between two cars, lost control.
Yep.
But it hit a. There was a Bronco, a new Bronco with supersized tires and plastic fender flares, and this car hit the tire and was launched airborne because I think the tire size had a lot to do with it. It was
lifted the car.
It shot it up in a big twist. I think that would have been prevented had the tires been smaller. I think it would have been a less dramatic collision. And I'll find the video.
Covered by a body panel, or
it had plastic body, and you could see the fender just fly. But I think the tires played into really making it a dramatic crash.
And just to let you know, there is a maximum width that you're allowed to operate on the roads. I don't know the metric part of it, but it's 101 inches. 101 inches wide. And then if you need something that's wider, you need a special permit. You may need an escort vehicle. You may need a whole bunch of other stuff, proper signage, like trucks do when they're carrying, wide loads, things like that. So in the city of Toronto, you need an escort.
Not that kind of escort. It's
a police escort.
Police escort.
Yeah.
So thank you for that question, and I'm glad you're enjoying the show. Aaron wants to know, what if two cars pull up to a stop sign at the same time? Who goes first? This is always the question that we get, because it's in Canada, we just wave to the other person for 20 minutes. No one goes anywhere.
I think it's the red car first and then everything else.
Red cars go first?
Isn't that the rule?
They're faster, right? Or is it black cars go faster?
Oh, I don't know. You know what? It is... there's an unwritten rule that is the person on the right.
But if they're opposing, they're both equidistant in terms of rightness.
You know what? You have to figure it out. You have to use some good communications. That's why you don't have your front window tinted. And being in Canada, we're just going to sit there and wave the other person on.
So here's one thing that I liked that Scott Marshall would regularly say. He says, right of way is given, not taken. So if you are in question as to who should go first, waving to let the other person go, it gives you an extra 10 seconds to your day. But at the end of the day, it's safer. Let them go.
There are times when I've gotten to an intersection and the same thing has happened. And usually if I start moving a little bit before the other one, they'll see that I'm moving, and usually they will allow me to go. But you want to cover that brake pedal. You want to do it very slowly. You want to make sure that they see that you're moving, because if you just take it and go out there, you may end up in a collision. So
it's true. It's true. What do we got here? We got another question from LJ. On a 2-lane road, can I pass a car on the right shoulder if they're making a left-hand turn and there are lots of cars coming the opposite way? And good morning. Well, good morning to you. The deal is... Sorry?
Yeah, go ahead.
The deal is that there are laws specific to passing on the right. And the exemption is if the vehicle is slowing and intending to make a left turn, or stopped waiting to make a left turn, if the shoulder is paved.
Absolutely. So it's 142 sub 2.
He's read that before.
Only because I got stopped by the other people's police and said, you passed that car on the right. And I said, I was allowed to. There's an exemption. And we both sat there and looked at it, and he goes, wow, I didn't even know that. So the vehicle has to be slowing or stopping, signaling its intention to make the left turn. And there has to be enough of the roadway, not just the highway, but the roadway has to be paved to pass that vehicle on the right-hand side. And the situation where I did it in, they'd actually paved a little bit of the shoulder to allow that to happen.
It's like they planned for people to do that.
Right.
Amazing. Just I see there's another question and a couple questions, but I want to make sure we discuss the most important thing, which is recruiting. Now, people say, why is it most important? Well, we're looking for people to come and work here. We want magical people to join this magical career. And what better way to do that than talk about the fact that we're hiring? If you go to www.tps.ca, you will get into our employment unit page. .ca/careers, more specifically. There it is on screen. And you get these smiling faces looking back at you. There's information about all sorts of things, including police constable roles, special constable roles, parking enforcement, communications operator. Those people who answer the 911 calls and say, hey, how can we help you? Police, fire, ambulance, go ahead. And then they transfer your call to, or they transfer the information to a dispatcher who is speaking to the officers, who actually makes it possible for people to go to help you.
Yeah. You know what? Our dispatchers are actually the ones that are entirely in control of us.
Yes. They speak on behalf of the chief.
They do. And they are the ones who are directing us what to do, what information we need so we can get out there and do our job. You don't ever want to upset them.
This is true.
Because
you get crappy calls afterwards.
You certainly do.
You get all of the calls that oh, there's another report for Shapiro.
Yep.
And I say that jokingly because I have a good relationship with dispatchers, but I can tell you that not everyone does.
That's true. We're all people.
Yes.
We all gotta get along.
Let's see there were 3 positions available or posted yesterday. One was for a caretaker, one for a communications operator, and one for a technician. Let's see if there's anything new. Civilian roles. This is the button we press, and still 3. It's intermediate technical analyst, custodian, and communications operator. Now, these positions don't stay on here forever. They're posted, and if you go to the bottom, you'll see that it closes on August 20th. So if you know somebody who might be interested in a position as a intermediate technical analyst, working with with communications operators, this is our new 911 center, let them know that this is a job that's available. You got someone in computer and technology, this could be perfect for them. But you need to get them the information so they can read it and apply before the cutoff, because then the opportunity is gone. Okay, back to questions because they're here. Okay. In Ontario, where are disabled people's motorized scooters supposed to drive? So if we're talking about a wheelchair or a mobility scooter, they're allowed to drive anywhere, sidewalks, inside buildings for the most part, if they have ramps and accessibility. That's what they're intended for.
Right. If it is a true mobility device,
yes,
not just a modified one that people are using to skirt around the laws.
Mm-hmm.
If it is a true mobility device, it can go anywhere a pedestrian can go, including crossing streets, sidewalks, things like that. Now, because it's there for a purpose.
But technically, a wheelchair is the only one that is considered a pedestrian, whereas a motorized mobility scooter is actually considered a vehicle.
It is.
And it's a motor vehicle, so if you were getting boozed up at the bar and you got in that, you could be charged with impaired operation.
Absolutely.
Whereas in a wheelchair, you can't. Electric wheelchair, you cannot. But it's difficult. I've seen a number of people parking their mobility scooters in accessible parking spots to get out to walk into Tim Hortons. I've seen people do a lot of different things. I've seen people driving on the road with them, with traffic. I've seen a lot of, and that's to me very dangerous.
Yeah.
Especially because so many of them are very low, and some have gotten creative and put flags on them. Like I used to have on my bicycle when I was a kid. But to be seen, and it is an issue. Persons who are seated have an issue with people acknowledging them. And it's no different. So I've seen some very cool wheelchairs that actually rise up so people can have face-to-face conversations. Excellent technology that's coming out to help those that are, in wheelchairs and using mobility devices. So, but yeah, they go where they have to go. That's the ultimate reason for them to be there. Let's see here. Currently leaving a very small, slow force for a very busy one. Any advice on adjusting to the pace? Get ready, because it's busy. So if you're coming to a big city like Toronto, or I don't even know what other examples to give. York's pretty busy. Peel's very busy. Yep. But we are extremely busy. Sleep well when you're off, because you're going to be working.
And policing is going to be a little bit different. Slower small-town policing gives you the opportunity to do a complete investigation. Mm-hmm. Take it from right at the very start, responding to the call, to bring it through court to the very end. We don't always have the opportunity to do that in big services, but we have experts that do that. So the road police officer may make the arrest and gather the evidence and take the statements, turn it over to a detective. A detective will do the follow-up investigations, prepare somebody or the brief to go to court, be the court liaison officer there, taking it through and being the expert in whatever type of crime that's there. Where in the small services, some good, some bad ways to do it is you're the officer, you're the investigator, and you need to be the expert and take it from start to finish.
And we have big services like the OPP, which run in small little smaller divisions where you do everything, even though you're part of a big organization. You're it when you're working.
Yep.
When you're in York, for instance, everyone does traffic because that's part of what policing is. When you come to Toronto, we specialize, and then we have traffic officers who respond, and we have officers who do SACO stuff, and we're very specialized, and you call in for what you need because it has to run quickly.
SACO stuff is Scenes of Crime Officer, SACO.
Yes, I forget that I'm an acronym guy, and not everybody knows the acronym. I don't even know half the acronyms. The best one is TSV, Traffic Services. The acronym or the code for it is TSV, but it's just traffic services. So where's the V? Well, it's
Traffic Services.
Well, it turns out that the mystery was solved when we found out that the computer system for putting in the letters needed 3 characters. So they had to add a third one. And I guess it was elected to be V. And it's just, no one even thinks about it. They say, oh, I want a TSV. What does the V stand for? Yeah. But good luck on your move to the new service. Let us know how it goes. I now want to know how this plays out.
Actually, reach out and let us know where you're going, what you're doing.
And where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Let's see here. At a 4-way stop, 2 cars are facing each other and one is signaling left. Who has the right of way?
We kind of talked about that earlier.
First one to arrive is first one to drive. That's at a 4-way stop.
And if I was making a left turn and crossing a travel lane of traffic, I have a greater responsibility to do so safely.
Yeah.
As opposed to the person that's traveling straight through. So if I was making a left turn, I would always wave the straight through person on to go first.
In a city like Toronto, where there's so much going on. There's pedestrians traveling on all sides. They're not necessarily paying attention to what you're doing. You may have to wait a cycle of things until you get that opportunity because it doesn't matter what your right is, your right of way. It's what you can do safely because you're at the end of the day going to be held responsible for what you choose to do if it goes poorly. Pedestrians waving their right-of-way to drivers while standing at a corner, is that ticketable? Waving their right-of-way to drive. So waving, you're saying go ahead, like we're letting you go? Is that what we're talking about? I'm not sure what we're talking about. How would you interpret Mike's question?
Yeah, I don't actually know.
I think when you say they have the right to pass, is that, or they have the pedestrian has the right to cross, and they're saying go ahead. I do it all the time. So this is where I think courtesy is so important, especially in a big city like Toronto, because what happens is you have a car that's waiting to turn left, and a gaggle of people have crossed the street, and just as the person is getting off the road, a new gaggle says, oh, "I'm a pedestrian; it's my right to go."
Yep.
Well, it's not actually true that pedestrians always have the right of way, and courtesy really does have a part to play there. I let cars go all the time because I know nobody else will. And if I stop, I know that people beside me will probably stop too, and it's a thing. Do the right thing, people will follow. But cars can be backed up for blocks trying to make turns, and pedestrians won't give them a chance to move.
Yeah.
So doing the right thing, waving through. It's not ticketable for letting a car go through. You're just pausing and saying go. Now, I will say this to the person receiving the wave: don't just blindly go. Make sure it's still safe. They're letting you go, but you have to make sure it's safe. Because I was in a collision where someone was waved into my path. Well, they took for granted that it was safe to go, and they drove and hit me. That was my collision that took me off the road because the guy said, go ahead. Yeah.
Now, you're reading it as a wave as a wave. But
Yes.
I could also read it as waving their right. So giving up their right to go, well.
I think it's the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. With a wave.
With a wave. Waving their wave. Going left. Here we go. Going left on University Avenue on Richmond Street. Can we turn left as usual or wait for green, Richmond?
Going left on University
Oh,
Avenue
because
to
Richmond's a one-way? Is that what so you want, do you mean, can you do it on a red light? So to make a left turn on a red, I'm reading into what you're saying. If you're making a left turn on a red, you must be on a one-way street going to a one-way street. University is not a one-way street.
Now, see, I'm reading it as they're making a left onto Richmond, and because University is a divided highway with quite a large center median, can you make the left
I was
to the
thinking Richmond to
center, and then
University.
do
I
you
was going
have
the
to
other way.
stop and then wait to cross it?
Okay, I think you're right.
I think that's where you're going with
I
it,
went
because-
wrong because I was thinking on Richmond to University, and it's the other way around. So, that confuses a lot of people, a lot, because they turn halfway and they stop.
Yes, and University Avenue has a good section of center median, and there's some memorials up and down University Avenue, things like that, which you could divide it into two highways or two intersections, but technically it's not.
Right.
It's one big, large, entire extended intersection, and if you're making the left turn and you have the right to make the left turn, you don't have to follow the...
It must be safe to do so, though. If you're making a left turn on a green and you may have oncoming traffic, you may have to yield and come to a stop to avoid collision.
Yes, if the southbound or northbound opposing traffic has come through, but you don't have to wait for the Richmond light.
That's right. So when you're making the turn, you don't stop for that light. You just have to be mindful of traffic that's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even answering this question is confusing. So if you need more, feel free to go to TrafficCop.ca, send a message, we'll hash it out. But yeah, you continue through, obviously making sure it's safe. You don't stop for that light that is for the other traffic.
Right.
Yeah, it is a big intersection, and so many people I find stopping, and you have to give them a little toot to say, "Hey, wait," and you can't communicate that while you're on the road.
Yeah.
Can I join the force with a work permit? You need to have actually you can, but not as a police officer. You must have a citizenship or permanent resident status to be a police officer in Ontario. I assume for all of Canada, but definitely for Ontario. Yeah. But as a work permit holder, you can work in civilian roles. So you can work for the service, just not as a police officer.
Right.
But good luck to you if that's your goal. Because once you have the status, you would be able to. Let's see here. Oh, we were talking about this yesterday. I heard you can get a DUI on a riding mower and even a canoe. Is that true? AJ the Awesome, long time no see. And the answer is yes, it is true. It is different reasons.
Yep.
A DUI on a riding mower is because it's classified as a motor vehicle. However, a canoe is classified as a vessel under the what act?
The Federal Act.
The Federal something Act.
But all vessels are included within that.
Yes.
Even though it's not a motorized vessel, it is a vessel, and you cannot be impaired operating a vessel. A ride-on mower, a golf cart, even on a golf course.
Electric skateboard. Anything other than muscular power.
E-bike still qualifies. So impaired on anything other than muscular power, but impaired on muscular power is dumb, dangerous, and may get you arrested and a ticket for intoxicated in a public place.
There are so many bad things that can happen.
Remember, you can always get a careless driving ticket on a bicycle.
Yes. People think they're completely exempt.
Yep.
And while you can't get a DUI on a bicycle in Ontario, but you can in Florida. Every jurisdiction has different laws and different ways of handling it. So it's very interesting. Impairment, bicycles are dangerous. So are skateboards. And if you're impaired, you can get really hurt and you could hurt somebody else.
Well, they can be dangerous.
Well, I think they're inherently dangerous because we've had people who just fell off a bicycle just standing there and, head injury on a brick and, it's dangerous. Let's see here. I don't know. Oh, PC Papadopoulos is PC Pappy. He's emailing me. He posted a cool video, and I gotta press a button to share it. Okay, let's see here. How lucky are? Linda says, "How lucky are we in Toronto to have you here to help us each day?" Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda.
And we were talking about the zero velocity drop. I just didn't have the wonderful terminology, but Peter, the Star Wars cop, who's a bike guide, talks about helmets. The zero velocity drop is when you fall. Actually, Peter, why don't you tell us what the zero velocity drop is since you're there? No, he can't. He can't come on camera right now. I think were you joking? Or he's turning the lights on. He's coming. Oh, there he is. Hey.
So your zero velocity drop is when you're at a full standstill. Say you're at a stop sign and you fall over. Which anyone who will tell you who's clipped into their pedals is like the worst experience because your bike goes down with you and then it's hard to get back up. That would be your zero velocity.
You've fallen and you can't get up.
Or the police officer that had long shoelaces and had his shoelace get wrapped around the gear shifter. And when he came to a stop, he went, You.
And that's even worse because you can't get out of that.
No, you can't.
No, yet that's going, taking your foot out of the shoe.
Yep.
Ah, very interesting. Well, thank you, Peter. I appreciate your input. Why do Uber Eats drivers asked to have M2 license yet they use e-bikes, not motorized? What? Why do Uber Eats drivers ask to have M2 license yet they use e-bikes?
Could be an Uber.
I'm
Eats
not
thing.
aware of this. This is news to me.
Okay. Sounds like an Uber Eats thing.
It might be an Uber Eats policy. Now, an M2 is a motorcycle learner's permit, second stage, like a G2. You can ride anywhere, but there's still conditions. And I've never heard of it for an e-bike. If you were walking, would they ask you for an M2? How do they know? Now, there is
an e-bike, as long as it follows the criteria, doesn't require any license or insurance.
This is true, but I think they're trying to regulate the industry because there's a lot of issues surrounding it. They're getting a bad rap because a lot of these people, chicken rap.
You don't want a bad rap from an Uber Eats driver.
No. But there's a lot of negative press because many of these folks who are riding around with logos on them are riding on the sidewalk and narrowly missing pedestrians and putting people's lives at risk at times. And they might be self-regulating for the purposes of making it safer, because that ensures that you know what you're doing on the road, that you know what the rules are, as opposed to someone who may not know what the rules are and just needs to make some money and might be cutting corners to make a buck. And that's not to vilify people who are trying to do that. I respect people who want to work. I just want to make sure everyone's safe. So if they're doing that on their own, I think that's actually pretty creative.
Yep. Yep. Very good.
Yeah. We're going to do one and then the dad joke. What are the chances a cop won't show up to traffic court for a speeding ticket? Once upon a time, I would have said that it was a fairly regular occurrence that police officers would be excused from court. But here's the deal. We are booked in Toronto, and it's different in every jurisdiction. Many jurisdictions are all on-duty court. And as a result, if there's a call that's a priority call, they may be canceled from court by a supervisor because they're needed somewhere else. There's a stabbing, there's a shooting, there's a car crash. They can't not go to that. That's the priority. They cancel court, and then very often the court dismisses the charges. And that's like the lottery for the person who got charged. But we get booked off-duty to go to court.
Yeah, we don't get a choice of when we get to go to court. And sometimes they make us go to court on our days off while we're doing other stuff. Mm-hmm. But if they're making us do that and we're obligated to go, most likely we're going to be there.
Yes. And at times when we're sick, something happens, it's possible, but the chances of us not being there are lower. And as of COVID, we were able to testify remotely by Zoom. So that made it a lot easier for officers to testify. So the chances, I think, of us not showing up if it's a Toronto ticket are lower than ever. Yeah. So things to think about. It's not just playing the game, rolling the dice, as it possibly once was. Fantastic question. It is past 11 o'clock, but we have dad jokes. And
that means I got to get going, so...
Dad jokes first?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Can't miss that.
This all started because of you, actually. You're the dad joke, the king of dad jokes. Here's dad joke part 1 of 2, and Peter's hungry. So part 1 of 2 is, after finishing up the last coat of paint on a house, the painter handed an invoice to the owner. The owner looked it over and said, "You only charged me for the labor." Part 2 says, "What about the paint?" The painter replied, "It's on the house."
Yeah, I like it.
I like it.
The paint's on the house.
That is good. Not every joke is good, but that was good. Oh, we got thumbs up from...
Okay, I like it.
Let's see here. Dad joke. Dad, what's my blood type? Dad says, red.
But it's not.
It's blue.
Always.
Well, it's blue until it oxidizes. It's oxidizing that turns it red, right?
Dr. Shapiro, yes.
Yeah. Quote. Did we talk about this one? Confucius has a quote.
Confucius?
Our greatest glory lies in... No, let me put on screen. Our greatest glory lies not in never falling. Our greatest glory lies never... Okay,
wow. How about I take over that one?
Please, yes.
Our greatest glory lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall.
I like it. I can't read it.
So we fall down and we rise up again, and that makes us the greatest.
I like it. Dad joke. Last dad joke. This one's from Bernhard 22. A speeding ticket is fine. Example
is a fine
I can't read
example.
anything today, these jokes.
Yeah, I
a
like it.
speeding ticket is a fine example of breaking the law. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you like that one. He
Yep.
likes that one. I can't.
like it.
I'm discombobulated. No more reading for me. I'm going to go with Peter and get lunch.
It's Friday.
Yes. Oh, he says, Chef's Kiss? Is that a restaurant? No, he just likes the. Why do you we can see you, right? You could just talk.
All right.
It's a reference to when you like something, chef's kiss.
Okay. Thank you to all who have spent time in the show participating by way of asking questions. And, that's what makes this show awesome. It's you. Because if not for you, we'd have very little to talk about. But, he's talked about Star Wars a lot. Are you a Star Wars fan?
Now, I got to tell you, I'm not a Star Wars fan. But funny story, I was at the opening day afternoon movie of the very first Star Wars in 1977 when it came out. My father was taking me to a movie, and the one we went to go see was sold out. And my dad said, hey, let's go to this one. That looks kind of cool.
Because popcorn's good.
And in 1977, I was sitting there like this. It was amazing. Loved it.
But not a fan going forward? It was just...
You know what? I watched, the Return of the Jedi and all those things, and then I just kind of lost them because... I don't know. I don't know why I did.
It didn't stick for you. Here's the last question that popped up, and I think it's actually good. How can cops perform roadside inspections and deem cars illegal if they aren't certified mechanics? It's a good question because I like this stuff. Would you like to take this one? Or
an awful lot of it is common sense. It really is.
Gross defects.
And you really don't want to get pulled over by me and then start talking technical because... there are police officers that are mechanics on this job, so you just never know.
There's a lot of mechanics that are police officers, oddly enough. That is so. But the deal is that we're actually given authority under the Act, and the stuff that we're going for is not the most. Like, I'm not looking to check if your timing is correct. I'm looking to check if something that's supposed to be there isn't there, or if something that's supposed to be within tolerance is a gross defect. Like, for instance, the springs on a Hino. It's called a Hino. Those vehicles tend to have broken leaf springs in the back all the time. If I see the broken springs, I can see it's broken. I can articulate that. I can take you out of service. And I just saw Caleb popped up with one last dad joke. It's a Star Wars dad joke, so it's specifically for Peter. Why did Lando Calrissian work in Cloud City? His Star Wars dad joke? What? Is it twice? What's going on here?
He wanted a low-pressure job.
Oh, I see. He cut and pasted, and the question asked, I got messed up.
Cloud City, low
He's got
pressure, barometric pressure. Come on.
No, it's good. It just threw me off by the cold.
Wow.
The cut and paste was a fail, but the joke was good. And there was a thumbs up that was covered by stuff. Okay, cool. We are done. We are done like dinner or lunch. And I've been playing this recruiting video a lot. I like this recruiting video. Have you seen this recruiting video?
I have.
We're going to play it again for you. And we're gone for the weekend. So see you on Monday. Hope you have a fantastic weekend. Drive safe. Drive sober.
Park legally.
Park legally. And smile because it's FriYAY. Have a good one. Take care.
Take care.
Your future career starts with a vision. A vision of opportunities ahead, where you can see a path to a noble career, serving the city of Toronto. Where do you see yourself? Toronto Police Service. Apply today.